Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of College Football UK. Now, as of today, the day of releasing it is Thanksgiving. So we're all thankful for lots and lots of football. I get that. But more importantly, more important than thanks is hate. Is just pure, unrivaled, unbridled hatred. And that's what we're going to be going through this week as it has arrived. Hate Week is here, or as it's probably better known around most media as Rivalry Week, is upon us. I'm filled with hatred this weekend, just in general, to be honest with you. And most weekends. This weekend gives me the opportunity to have that as an outlet and to join me in just unbridled hatred this week is Nick and Sam. How are we? How are we, gentlemen?
All good.
Yeah, good.
So, normally what I would do is kind of say, "Oh, what you're thankful for? What do you hate today? What do you hate today?"
There's a lot of things I am very hateful of.
Ah, traffic, people that don't indicate, people that don't
Yeah.
say thank you, Man United.
All the British things.
Yeah, you know, the Jets.
I would say that my hatred is almost solely focused on Ohio State right now. But I was thinking before, there are four things I hate more than Ohio State, and I'll admit this: Man United, Liverpool, lists, and irony. Hate all four of them.
Oh, I
More,
love a list. I
I'm a
love a
big fan of a
list.
list. Big fan of a list.
watch that. That's okay. More importantly, though, we are going to talk about college. Yes, there's a lot of hate involved this week. It's hate week, but more importantly, right now there is a little bit of news that has come through this week. I'm very, very excited to share a couple of these pieces of news. But first, Nick, Sam, what do we have this week? Nick, you go first. What you have?
Um, North Carolina have decided who they are bowl eligible for the sixth consecutive year. They've decided they're going to part ways with their head coach at the end of the year. A man they pay $5 million a year, who's the most successful coach in the university history, college history, and they've had enough. They want somebody else. So even when you're successful at your job, you're out the door. So Mac Brown will finish this week. He will coach North Carolina this weekend in his final game, and then he's gone. So doing a good job doesn't always keep you in a job.
Well, they've also got a bowl game, which he'll take charge of, I assume.
I assume, yes, if they're selected. They're eligible. I don't know whether they've been
Yeah.
selected yet.
Okay.
So the only other new piece of news that I had of note is unfortunately something not very nice. Alabama A&M today announced the death of their red-shirted freshman linebacker Medrick Burnett. He suffered a head injury last month in a challenge. That's why he's been redshirted. And based on what I found out, he's failed to recover from that head injury, bleeding on the brain and whatever else. And he's just failed to recover. And so he died yesterday, and it was announced by the athletics director at the college today. So
That is heartbreaking.
there is no doubt that this sport is, it is a dangerous sport, and they're trying to make it safer at the top, and but there are risks with it, like with any sport.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, look, the jokes fly around all the time of it's rugby for wimps and they wear pads because they can't take it. Like, this is why they wear pads. And
Yeah,
even then, um, I did not know about that. That is absolutely devastating.
I
And
would
obviously,
argue, I would argue that I think in the NFL you've got these guardian caps now. Now, obviously, the NFL had these guardian caps which players in training have to wear. And then only this year it's become optional in games. You see some players are wearing the guardian cap with then a plain cover over the top to
Mhm.
make it look like the helmet. I personally think those guardian caps need to be on helmets, training and games at college level. And I don't care whether it doesn't suit the look of
No,
the TV or whatever. It's not about that. It's about, protecting young kids, you know.
well, absolutely,
So I
absolutely.
think that's something they need to look at going forward.
I certainly think in the college game that may be something that should be looked at. I mean, and the thing is, you see them in the NFL, they don't even look that bad. Like half the
No,
time, you wouldn't even know from a distance that they're wearing them. It's only when the camera pans and it's close on them that you even notice that they're wearing anything. So
And
to
it's only
me,
because the helmet's slightly bigger that you can tell
yeah,
that they're wearing it,
it's barely noticeable. It just looks like they've got like a shower cap over their helmet. That's all
Yeah.
it looks like. So for the sake of especially with what we've seen this season, I think we've seen quite a significant number of what you would class as targeting
Mhm.
fouls this season, and the injuries that come with that. I don't see why we aren't just pressing that more in college. I mean, at a much younger level, they have to wear those.
Yeah,
So why don't we just continue that until they are professionals, where they then get a choice of whether they wear it or not?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, no, I fully agree. And again, I was obviously watching the Lions game at the weekend. I think I saw a Colts player, and I double took twice before I went, oh wait,
Yeah.
he's wearing a Guardian. That's why it looked slightly off on a close up.
Mm.
But no,
Hey,
absolutely right.
if I was at a pro level, I'd be wearing one.
Yeah,
If I was lucky enough to be good enough to play that sport at a pro level, I'd be wearing one.
I am
Not,
very much.
you know,
Yeah, I'm very much a believer in it. If the science and the facts dictate that it makes it does not impact your ability to play in any way, shape, or form, but it impacts it helps with the impact of injuries like that. I'm all for it in just about every given circumstance. Um, and look, I think it goes without I know it goes without saying, but uh, Medrick Burnett Jr. The thoughts of everyone at the network go out to friends and family and teammates at Alabama A&M. That's the word tragic doesn't cover stories like that at all. However, uh, trying to kind of continue on with the episode, which we'll try and do. Sam, did you have any news this week?
Not that I was going to bring up, but I do have some that'll coincide with what you wanted to bring up as news. So I'll leave
So,
it for you, and then
okay,
we'll
so my first
tag
one.
on to it.
I'm very, very excited for this one. Let me just. I'm going to kind of lean to the side a little bit and let my background and my hoodie do the talking. Here, the
yeah, yeah.
number one ranked prospect in the country, LSU commit Bryce Underwood out of Bellevue, Michigan, has flipped his commitment from LSU to the
Western Michigan.
Michigan Wolverines.
Oh,
You were close, and I believe though that was the other school that was really, really in for him.
oh, right, yeah.
With a real chance, it was a close one. Bryce Underwood has flipped his commitment again. Like he is the number one ranked prospect in the country, which has come with what is reported as a $10.5 million NIL deal, which will be given to him over 4 years. He had numerous conversations with, I believe, Tom Brady stepped in to the
Oh,
conversation. Tom Brady, if you are aware, I'm sure you are, Nick, and well, everyone's aware by now, but you will be very much aware, is a Michigan alumni. The greatest quarterback of all time is a Michigan alumni. And also conversations with Dave from Barstool Sports and a couple of other previous alumni and Michigan NIL donors. Um, has flipped, and then one of his team, I can't remember his teammate's name, but four-star recruit DB from Bellevue High School as well has also flipped to Michigan. Been a number of flips as well. I feel like FSU have lost a few. Wonder why. No one can figure out why FSU were losing players. To Florida as well, of all teams. What did you have, Sam?
So I had Julian Lewis, who is the number 2 recruit coming out of college, 5-star recruit, on the 21st. So that would be what was that? What's the date today? 27th. So last week,
6 days ago.
Thursday.
he committed to Colorado. I'm not sure if that was a switch or not, but he has committed to Colorado. I'd have to check on if he was anywhere before. Again, running with this, Caleb Cunningham, a 4-star recruit out of MS. I'm not sure where it is, to be honest.
He's from Mississippi.
Yeah, so he's from Mississippi. He's committed to Ole Miss.
Yeah, because the only reason he was from Mississippi is because when he flipped to Ole Miss, it said he's flipped to hometown,
Yeah.
stayed in state to go to Ole Miss.
There's also another one that's maybe a little bit older. This was from last month. Andrew Babalola, a offensive tackle, is from Kansas, out of Kansas. Again, another 4-star recruit has committed to Michigan. We also have a few others. Again, I'm not sure whether these are flips or what or not, but I'm assuming they are, given the fact that they're so late.
Yeah.
And most 25 have already committed somewhere else. Houston Longstreet, quarterback out of California. He's committed to USC. Tay Harris, safety out of Georgia, is committed to Georgia Tech. And Ivan Taylor, cornerback from Florida, has committed to Alabama. And then the last one, which happened 2 days ago, which this might have been one of the flips, is Ty Jackson, inside linebacker out of Florida, has committed to Florida. So that may be a switch from Florida State.
Right.
But they're the 5- and 4-star recruits that I've seen flip. Oh, there's 2 more, sorry. Another one for Michigan is Shamari Earls, cornerback out of Virginia. He's committed to Michigan. And again, another one from last month. Aaron Dunn, offensive tackle out of Utah, has committed to USC. So they're the ones that have, in the last sort of couple of months, I know we've not really covered any of the committals over the recent weeks, apart from obviously this big one being Underwood. So I just thought I'd go through a few that have happened over the last couple of months.
No, appreciate it. Thank you.
But we might see some more.
Do we think all these Florida State jumping ship are because Gary's applied for the job?
Yeah, definitely.
They're all jumping ship because they found out Gary's applying for all of the jobs.
All Florida State commits previously were listening to this podcast. It's got to be the only logical explanation.
There's a reason he's missing. There's a reason Gary's not been on in a while. He's off in Florida trying to get that coaching job.
But have you not seen that the 49ers have been schmoozing him with gifts?
They have.
Oh,
because they want him to commit to being Shanahan's replacement.
It's so clear. And how he managed to keep all of this under wraps and not tell any of us is beyond me. You'd almost think we were making it up, honestly. It sounds like
we wouldn't do that.
No, but we wouldn't. We're an honest we've got honesty and integrity on this podcast.
Correct.
End of story. But the other one little bit of news I've got, it's kind of news. It's a little segment we brought back where we find some loose news and make it fit. We've got a helmet headline. We have a helmet headline. Via, are you ready for this one, Sam? Helmethistory.com. Yep, that is correct. Helmethistory.com. Kent State, who played last night at the time of recording, played their final game of the season, but of which, by the way, they have now gone winless throughout the season, 0-12. Used their 11th different helmet of the season. 11th different helmet. So I don't know if they were thinking, we've lost in this helmet. It's clearly bad luck. Let's try a new one. Oh, we've lost in this one. Let's try a new one. Oh, we've lost in this. I don't know if that was the thought process in it, because
five helmets in, you got to think. I don't think it's the helmet, guys.
Yeah. Either way, I think the producer of the helmets is sat there like, no, no, seriously, it is. They're making the money either way. They're happy with it. Um, some of them are quite nice, to be fair. Some of them are a bit odd, but some of them are actually like the nice helmets. I'm not gonna lie. Which out of context is an extremely weird comment to make. And Nick, you can take that smirk off your face because I saw your face light up when I said that. But yeah, if
Can we clip that? Can we
no,
clip that?
no. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. To answer your question, Sam, I'm on the homepage here, by the way. College FBS schools, Canadian NFL, College FCS, USFL, XFL, all the old XFL, Alliance of American Football, UFL, United Football League, NFL Europe, World League of American Football, United States Football League, and World Football League. All of them. All of them. You can trace back to 90-year-old helmets if you want, if that's where you want to go. So there's your helmet headline that Kent State have used 11 different ones this year, and clearly an attempt to win games that did not work.
There's a few others on there that you can mention as well. I've only just seen.
Like what?
You mentioned Kent State, wasn't it? They've got another new version. On the 29th, Liberty will use a blue face mask on white helmet with an eagle logo. So that's their new helmet that they're using.
Who's that, sorry?
Liberty, Liberty,
Who?
Liberty, Liberty.
Okay, oh yeah, yeah, I get you now.
South Alabama with another new helmet, but they will use the same logo on both sides.
Yeah.
So the only difference there is very little. It's not really anything, to be honest. And Army with their an annual new helmet versus Navy. So their new helmet is, well, they've got 4 versions of it. So they've got, all right, okay. So they've got one for each of the different symbols on a deck of cards. So a diamond, it's basically all black with a diamond, all black with a heart, all black with a spade, and all black with a club.
So they're all black then.
They're all black. Well,
Well, half a black, half a red.
apart from the actual uh, symbol, which is white. So there you go. 4 new helmets.
All the helmet headlines. Catch them here first. I say first, catch them like that. Just catch them here. You're not catching them anywhere else. Um, there's a lot to go through, so we'll try and start plodding on. What a chaotic weekend of football that we have had. Where do we start? Where do we start? Do we start with Alabama?
They are doing their very best to throw it away, aren't they?
You'd think
I mean, they
that we
haven't.
could get onto
That's
that
the
in a minute.
first time they've lost 3 games since like 2003. I mean, I know I said Alabama early in the year, and I said about you could see that they were suffering from that Nick Saban lull. He's left, and you get it with, you know, in our football when a new manager comes in, you get that kick from a new manager, but you also like, you get when you have a manager that's been there a long time and he leaves, you get that lull, that effect of everything's just got to take its time to turn around, and that's what I said earlier on. I said that Alabama just didn't look like, they were at the races, and it's probably a down year based on the fact that they were changing. It was all change, but they've been really bad. I mean, against Oklahoma this last week, they were awful. I mean, oh, I don't think I've seen them play that bad in a long time. Just
I
giving the
can't
ball away.
I can't remember seeing them play like that. Granted, I think I'm a little bit newer to the overall college game, but I haven't seen a game yet where they played that bad. Jalen Milroe, 11 of 26, 164 yards and 3 interceptions.
I mean, his second interception was just silly. He threw it. There was no way that his guy was going to get there and get it. He might as well have just given it to the opposition because that's what he was doing by throwing it. It was just, you know, into coverage, three men around. Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's ridiculous. And to think though that that game stayed 3-3 until right at the end of the second quarter. So they were in it
Yeah.
for most of the first half, realistically. You wouldn't think it looking at the score when it's 24-3 at the end, but what they scored.
Look, have you seen Jackson? Is it Jackson Arnold? Is that his name? Jackson Arnold. Have you seen his stats?
Yeah,
They
Jackson
are
Arnold.
horrendous. 11 attempts, nine catches for 68 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions.
I mean, what's I need to in fact I need to see.
I mean, to be fair, he did make 25 run attempts and got 131 yards, but 68 yards, nine catches essentially for 68 yards.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah, he somehow got a passer rating of 133.8.
but the QB rating overall is 82.4.
Oh yeah, terrible.
Um it's still a lot better than Jalen Milroe, whose cute quarterback rating was 15.4. That's a thing. But no, they won it on they clearly won it on the ground though, because like you said, the Alabama passing 164 yards to 68 yards by Oklahoma, but 257 yards on the ground to 70. One on the ground.
Yeah,
One on the ground. And you would think, as Nick so wisely said, that you would think they were doing the best to throw it away. But then in steps the college football playoff committee to say maybe they aren't quite throwing it away totally. But that's a topic for in a minute. Now, we discussed this at the start of the season, by the way. There's gonna be no Pac-2 championship game. So, do we consider the game that they play against each other this year to be the championship game?
yeah.
Seems only fair.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Sam. You and I have just got our first win of the year. You and
Yeah.
I both said that Oregon State would win the Pac-12, and Oregon State narrowly, narrowly beat Washington State in what was an absolute thriller, by the way. It was a very, very good game. 41-38. So, with I believe it's 5-6 record overall. They beat Washington State, who have an 8-3 record overall, but because they are 1-0 in the conference, and
They win it.
Washington State are 0-1 in the conference, we have won the conference, my friend. Congratulations.
That's hilarious. Go on, Oregon.
I don't make the
Then
rules.
told you Beavers beat Cougars.
Every time. Then we've got what else? So much else went on this weekend. Auburn beating at 15 ranked Texas A&M 43-41.
The BYU Arizona State game was a humdinger. That was BYU just walked into an absolute ass whooping. Every time Arizona State got the ball, it's like, right, how should we score this drive? Oh, we'll do this, right? Score. BYU just looked at it going, have we started yet? Second half, BYU played much better second half, but
Yeah,
it was one of those that every time Arizona State had the ball, you thought they're going to score here. So
pretty much.
Oh yeah, Arizona looked so good in that game. Was it Scatterbo is his name, I
yeah,
think. He looked
yeah.
unbelievable. 3 touchdowns to 147 yards, and he looked unbelievable
They didn't have
from
an
the
answer for him. They just couldn't.
no, they just couldn't handle it.
They couldn't block him. They couldn't tie him up. It was just, every time he got the ball, he just had free will to run the field.
Even got absolutely his ass rattled by his head coach for going and doing the signing celebration at the end of his third touchdown.
He signed the
got,
ball, yeah.
yeah, did you see his head coach afterwards? Like literally was scouting around for him to try and have a go at him for doing it. It's so funny.
Um, well, bloody hell. A couple other brilliant games.
Is it worth mentioning as well as part of that game that the fact that they had two pitch invasions
Oh, at the end, yeah.
at the
Oh,
end?
that
Yeah,
was.
because they had the pitch invasion, but then they did a review of it, and he'd thrown it out of bounds, and it had landed on the 1 second mark. So they had to try and get everyone off the pitch.
I I didn't get what he was doing. I really didn't get it because he was on the whatever it was. He was on like the 8 yard line, and
Mm,
he could have sort of just run the ball, secure it in your arm, run it forward, and do it that way. And instead, they chose to go backwards and just
mm.
ran backwards towards half. And I was like, I get that you're trying to waste time, but. And they went further back and further back. It's like, you're going the other way, go the other way. And again, it was because they were trying to be fancy that he threw the
Mm.
ball, and the only place he could throw it that wasn't guaranteed to get picked was out of play. And you know, I thought the coach was being a little too clever then. I thought, I think
Yeah,
had that blown up in his face, I'd have gone, serves you right, really.
you
Um,
know what? I think as well for what happened at the end. I think he was I think Arizona were very lucky that they didn't get a single penalty thrown on them. One for the fans coming onto the pitch, also for the way the head coach was behaving towards the officials
yeah, I
after
mean,
that point.
the thing
I
with the
get why he
fans
was, because he was
is
annoyed, but
the thing with the fans is effectively the game had ticked to zero,
mm,
and it's not like they came on with time left on the clock.
yeah,
The clock expired, and so in the instance of pitch invasions, yeah, I mean pitch invasions, so be it. They waited until the clock ticked zero. It's not like the game was
oh yeah,
still. It was only because of the review that they had the situation where they had a field full of fans and had to get
mm,
them all. But they
I
hadn't
think it was
realised they couldn't get them off, so they just piled them all down one end and said, "Stay there, don't get
yeah.
involved."
I think that was the problem though, is the fact that at that point, I think there is a level of endangerment of the players because you've not cleared the full field properly. And I think that's where they could have landed themselves, and they probably will still land themselves in hot water because of the fact that they didn't technically clear the field. They just cleared
One
the
end,
actual, yeah, they
yeah,
cleared one end and the majority of the field, but did not clear the whole pitch itself. Um, I honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if, especially with some of the ones we've seen this season, if there is some form of review of the way that this happens, because that was quite, in terms of the timing and everything, that was quite, I don't want to say dangerous, but it can be quite dangerous especially for the BYU players. And I think the BYU coach was completely surrounded, had phones in his face and all sorts, and
yeah.
it started to look a bit nasty. Not that anything might have happened, but I didn't like. I mean, you see pitch invasions all the time in college football. I didn't like that one, in particular, but I was shocked that well, I wasn't shocked. I was surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd have got a 15-yard penalty and BYU would have been that little bit closer to getting another touchdown, and it would have been
Yeah,
hilarious if they'd have got it.
yeah,
But in the end, and I think
Yeah.
didn't he catch it? But it was like 10 yards short or something like that. I think I remember at the very end they went for it, and he threw it like 10 yards short.
yeah. He didn't get anywhere near the end zone,
Yeah,
so they just kept him out, which is effectively all they needed to do at that point. So,
yeah,
Um,
but
okay. In other games, Indiana finally lost. They finally played a ranked team and lost.
mhm,
Um, Colorado got, I wouldn't say their asses handed to them, but got comfortably beat by Kansas.
yeah,
Um, He was like, Notre Dame showed how un-American they are again by beating the Army
Yeah,
this time.
yeah. The
Um,
only team to beat the Army this year. The only team to be, you know,
yeah, how
it's
It was.
un-American.
It wasn't just. It wasn't just like a close game. You spanked their ass.
They
You
did.
literally spanked the American Army's
We
ass.
basically said we
but that's
hate
2 years.
freedom.
That's 2 years in a row because last year, hang on, I've got the score here.
Like
Um,
44 something, wasn't it?
yeah, because it was in I was in Dublin for it. Yeah,
Just keep telling us how un-American you are and how much you hate freedom.
you know,
You were that.
well,
You were that far ahead. You had your second string quarterback taking 5 throws and completing 4 of them for 41 yards.
I know. Um,
Riley Leonard came back out.
42, 42 to 3 last year. Um, so yeah. And last year Notre Dame didn't punt the ball once, but they had to punt the ball once this year. So I suppose Navy improved at that point. But to be fair, Navy have looked a very much different team to what I watched this last year. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at these notes back from last year. Like, I've got all like Navy's drives. Didn't go anywhere, didn't go anywhere, didn't go anywhere, didn't go anywhere, punt, punt, punt. It's like watching Georgia State.
I tell you, I tell you what. I know they still won, but Boise State struggled this week against 2-9 Wyoming, and 17-13 in the end. Ashton Janty only managed 169 yards for
Is
one
that
touchdown.
it?
Yeah, that's all he managed.
Pathetic.
He only had one catch for 4 yards as well. How dare he?
Uh, uh, Pathetic. Don't even cover that one. I nearly had the same amount of targets and receptions and yards as he got, and I was sat at home for so many thousand miles away. It's just not good enough.
Penn State struggled a little as well, didn't they?
A little, yeah, a little.
Minnesota gave them a game.
Do you know who? Do you know who also struggled, but came out with a win?
Are you going to say Michigan?
No, Michigan absolutely smacked the living crap out of Northwestern. We are bowl eligible, baby.
That in itself is quite an achievement considering how
It
you
really
played
is.
this
It
year.
really is. I was so happy. I've got this week. I'm not confident about this week. I'm kind of confident, but not properly confident. So I thought it was our only real shot, proper shot at getting bowl eligible.
So
But
you got two guys here that want Michigan to win. You know, you want Michigan to win anyway. You know, me and Sam are quite happily take a Michigan win over Ohio State. You know, I'll jump.
Most
I
definitely.
jumped off that. I jumped on the Ohio State bandwagon last week because I needed them to beat Indiana. But I'm happy to jump back on the Michigan wagon again this week.
Yeah, I'm on the Ohio hate train.
welcome aboard. Everybody's welcome on this one. But another team that did struggle a little bit and managed to equally a little win over Florida International was the mighty, greatest team to have ever graced the state of Georgia. Kennesaw State got away with the second win of the season. Very, very happy on Saturday. Very, very happy on Saturday. Um, so yeah, that happened. Then there was another one, and it leads
Ole
me to a
Miss,
point. Oh, what it
Ole
did
Miss,
that.
and the,
That's the one. That is the one.
losing
yeah,
losing to Florida.
because there's something you need to apologize
I
for.
do. I do need to apologise for it. Thank you for this. This is why I wanted to bring up Ole Miss. Um, let me get up the official
I
uh
don't know if you mentioned it before, but the,
sheet.
the last one that I remember you mentioning was losing whatever
Yeah,
you're going to talk about was the Georgia
yeah.
taking it off us.
It was, and it's twice since, and I've not brought it up. But I also, on her other line, have also apologised for my lack of my lack of bringing it up. It's my own fault completely. The college football MacGuffin has changed hands a couple of times since it was last brought up. And I know we're all extremely invested in it, and that's why nobody else has also brought it up. when Michigan took the college football MacGuffin off Washington in the national championship game, obviously we then lost it to
Any,
Texas in week
any
two.
chance, any chance to bring that back up, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it helps me deal with the fact that immediately we lost it pretty much. Granted, we had the summer. Like, in terms of days, it was a long time, but in terms of games, we held it for one. Texas took it off us. Then Georgia took it off Texas. Then a week later, Ole Miss took it off Georgia. And then this weekend, Florida took it off Ole Miss. Florida are the new holders of the college football MacGuffin, which leads me to another question. Could FSU do the funniest thing this weekend? The funniest thing this weekend. Beat Florida State, beat Florida, and because they aren't bowl eligible or anything like that, they won't get a bowl game. They can hold it all summer, and no one can touch it, and they can have the worst season ever, but walk away with the MacGuffin as the real winners of the college football season.
I would give them a 10% chance, and that's being extremely
Generous.
generous. Yeah,
Yeah,
extremely generous.
extremely. Yeah. However, they where'd they go? They did win this weekend. They join Kennesaw State with a mighty 2 wins on the season. Um,
Who was it to
so
beat?
they beat Charleston Southern a whopping 41-7.
At least they found their level. Sorry, Gary.
Their level's Kennesaw State.
Mm.
Um, in fact, that might not even be the case. No, that won't be the case because Kennesaw State have at least won 2 games in their own conference. Florida State haven't. They've only won the one. Anyway, that's not the point that we're making. That's not what we're talking about right now. Any other games that took you this weekend? Um, there were some decent rivalries this weekend as well. And some good game. That Georgia Tech NC State game was a really good one. Ended up finishing 30-29. UTSA battering Temple was fun. What about Texas Kentucky, Sam?
It was, to be honest, it was just one of those. We just were, good yardage and everything, but it was just one of those games. When you just think you're never going to lose that game. It was just a formality. I mean, with the fact that you know, Quinn Ewers didn't exactly have his best game, but he still managed to do what he needed to do. I think it was the best running game we've had this season, with Weisner getting 158 yards with 1 touchdown and Blue getting 96 yards. And I think, yeah, it was just a routine win for us. So I'm not really that. I wasn't really sort of expecting anything less, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
This
I
week
mean,
will be a lot more interesting.
the two things that I noted the other day was only because we spoke about them last week that Elton John's Watford and the Citadel both lost. Um, so obviously, I didn't see Elton John in attendance at Watford, but he can't see anything these days. He's half blind. But I
I
thought
don't think that
Colorado.
affects you seeing him though. And if I'm quite honest, as the way you dress, you would have seen him if he was there.
Yeah. Um, but I thought Colorado losing to Kansas was quite a shock. I expected that game to go the other way. I didn't watch it, so I can't comment on how bad Colorado were or how good Kansas. I didn't see it, but obviously, in just seeing the scores flash up at the end of the day, and you're like, oh, because I expected that to go the other way.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
Travis Hunter looked good again though. I must say, Travis Hunter did look good again. That you say, look, he got a measly, what was it, 169 yards on the ground. So a measly 169 yards on the ground. And then Travis Hunter had a game, 8 receptions, 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. And what were his defensive stats? Where's he gone? Where's he gone? Hard to find him. 7 tackles, 3 solo, and a pass deflection. Another very good game, playing on both sides of the ball. That, if you were to call it now, and there's only a couple of weeks now until the Heisman ceremony.
Oh, he's going to be
If you
Heisman
had to
winner.
call it, who are you taking?
Hunter.
Yeah,
I would
I'd
take
probably give
Hunter
it
over the
Hunter.
field. How's that? I will take Travis Hunter over the field. That's how I think. I genuinely think he's got it wrapped up.
I think
So,
he's
I mean,
been
he
in.
could have the worst game ever next week, and someone have an absolute blinder. But I'd be so confident to say I would take Travis Hunter over the field for winning the Heisman.
I mean, there's generally speaking that I don't think there's been any good. There's been no quarterbacks that have been good enough to win it. Which is, usually there's at least one quarterback who's relatively decent enough they'll just hold on to it. The only other player that I could think that would be standing a chance of winning it would be Ashton Janty.
Yeah.
The fact that he hasn't,
He's tailed off.
yeah, he's not been at his best the last few weeks. Yes, he's still putting up 170 odd yards, but it's nothing that, that we haven't seen before.
Nothing that we couldn't do. Nothing that we couldn't do. You know what I mean?
It's no Barry Sanders. So yeah, I just think the fact that he's doing it on both sides of the ball is just phenomenal. And I think the fact that he is going to go into this draft arguably is one of the number one draft, probably in the top 3 picks this year.
What is he worth? What is he? Because Jacksonville have the number 1 pick, right? Now, I'm just speculating at the moment. I think if I'm right, the top 3 picks are Jacksonville, Giants at 2, and Raiders at 3.
Well
Now,
done, yeah.
Giants and Raiders both want a QB. So if Jacksonville have the chance to take Travis Hunter, or does somebody want to, for example, do the Raiders want to jump the Giants and try and get Sanders before the Giants do? Does someone want to jump them both? What would take, if you say that Travis Hunter is as good as we all think he is, and he is the number 1 pick, what is it going to cost to get? Now, I understand if you're coming up from, a lot further back, it's more expensive, and for San Francisco to come up to third, it was costing what, 3 number 1s and a third from however many years ago. So how expensive is Travis Hunter going to be? Because that's the ultimate thing. What are you willing to pay to get Jacksonville off Travis Hunter? That to me is like the most interesting thing.
It depends who's willing to trade up far enough. Because realistically, Jacksonville are going to have the number 1. Say they do have the number 1 pick. It might not be the way.
If you want a QB, you've got to jump the Giants and the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And that means the only place you can go to jump the Giants and the Raiders is Jacksonville at 1. Now, obviously, if you're Cleveland at 6, 7, wherever they are, and they want to come up, fine. It's not as expensive. But if you are, say, New Orleans down at 9 or 10, wherever they are, that's going to be more expensive. But nevertheless, you've still got Jacksonville have to be persuaded to come down that far.
Especially as they're in a position, Jacksonville, where they could do with a cornerback.
They could do it a lot, actually.
Their secondary is utterly dreadful, but then half of their team's utterly dreadful. So,
I think Jacksonville are in a position at the moment where, at the end of the day, they've got the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence.
Mm.
I doubt the risk you take on a quarterback in this draft is worth more than what you've got in Trevor Lawrence and the contract that he's on. You've got Trevor Lawrence, you've got your quarterback. They need pieces all over. If I was Jacksonville, look, I don't. Again, that the great it's a great question that you ask, Nick, because in that position, if I was Jacksonville, I'd want the capital.
Mhm.
I would
I'd
look
want
at,
the
yeah.
capital.
They
Um,
they need they need so many different places. Like they need to
Because
fill so many holes.
I mean, the other thing is you're probably not going to play Hunter as a sorry, not as a QB, as a cornerback, as a CB first. He's probably going to be a wide receiver first. In which case, if you're in dire need of a corner, then you're probably looking at Will Johnson or Benjamin Morrison. So, in that aspect, you're going to maybe say, well, if I need a wide receiver, yes, but you could quite easily go and get Luther Burden or McMillan instead. You could quite conceivably get Johnson and McMillan if if
Mm.
you're willing to trade for the value.
I
But
think,
it's such an interesting, and ultimately Jacksonville hold the cards because they will decide what the price is.
and
Mm.
that's bearing in mind. We spoke on Hurdle the line. You watch Doug Peterson do the Lovie Smith thing of like ruin the Jags on the way out by by tanking their tanked pick and making them pick at 6, something stupid like winning the last couple of games. But
Mhm.
it's you think as well within that top 10 because you've got I've got it up on Tankathon here. Jacksonville, the Jags, Giants, Raiders, Patriots, Panthers, Titans, Jets, Browns, Saints, Bengals. The Giants, the Raiders, and definitely the Jets will want a quarterback next year. I wouldn't be overly
I'd make an
surprised.
argument to say the Carolina Panthers might want one as well.
It depends if Bryce Young carries on the trajectory he's
If they
going.
could,
If he carries
yeah,
on like this, I don't think they will.
true.
Um, and
Cleveland might need a quarterback as well.
Cleveland could very well need a quarterback. There
New
could be
Orleans could need a quarterback as well.
they.
But
Well, yeah,
I think they'll stick with Derek Carr. They'll wait another year. I think.
and they've got if they want a young quarterback that
Yeah,
could
they've got
potentially come out, they've
Rattler.
got Spencer Rattler.
They've still got the Swiss Army knife in Taysom Hill as well. So
Exactly. It's like okay, maybe not the Saints, but we'll take the Saints out of that equation.
yeah.
There are going to be that's one, two, three, four QB potentially QB needy teams.
Hmm.
And yet there's only two first round QB grades in Sanders and Ward. None of the
And
others are worth taking in the first
if
round.
you look at the free agent QBs in 2025, Aaron Rodgers is about to probably hit the market. Sam Darnold is going to hit the market. And let's face it, like with all due respect to Sam Darnold, yes, he had a great first few games. He's starting to look like Jet Sam Darnold again. He's seeing ghosts. He's having problems. JJ McCarthy will be starting next year. End of
Yeah,
story.
Daniel Jones will be on the market.
Daniel Jones.
yeah. Daniel
Look,
Jones will be on the market. Yeah,
that depends. Do they want to? If they might keep Daniel Jones as the backup to JJ McCarthy. You do,
Could do, yeah.
that could
yeah.
be a solution. I'm not saying obviously that might not be, could be. One of those two will at least hit the market either way between Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. The, none of them particularly, even if Daniel Jones is in there, I think Daniel Jones actually goes into that free agency as potentially the best situation for a team in free agency next year because none of them really shift the needle in free agency either. And one of the weird things about this draft is the first draft in I can't remember how many years where all 32 teams have retained the first round pick. So it's not like anyone
So
has
far,
the immediate capital to give up. So you can't, well, yeah, so far. But at this moment in time, no one has the immediate capital to give up. Like the immediate, so you're looking at franchising the future rather than, oh, well, we're picking at fourth, but we've also got the 11th pick, so we can package them to move up a couple of spots. No one's
Yeah.
got that.
I also
Um,
think. I mean, I don't know. You might know a bit more than me in terms of maybe in the past. There's very few trades where you get multiple first round picks that isn't for a quarterback.
oh, no.
So
Or a
that means,
generational.
yeah,
They have to be
someone,
generational.
yeah, exactly. So realistically, you're probably looking at there's no one in this draft class, I would say, personally, that's worth jumping up for in terms of quarterbacks and giving away your franchise. Personally, and the thing is, the teams that do need those franchise quarterbacks are already in the position to get them.
Yeah.
So I think the struggle is that Jacksonville. The only way that I can see Jacksonville trading, if they do have the number one pick, trading out of that number one pick, is by dropping down to someone who may want to jump up above the Giants and the Raiders. It's the only thing I can think.
Buffalo and Chicago, so the Bears and the Bills, are the only two teams that have multiple picks in the second round. So they're the only two teams with capital in the second round to move as well.
Yeah, and the Bears have their quarterback for the future.
The Bills
And
have
the
got their
Bills have
The
quarterback.
theirs,
Bills have got
obviously.
theirs. So
But I wouldn't be surprised in someone trying to maybe trade multiple picks for second round quarterbacks for
that could be an
backups.
option.
Because you could imagine someone like an LA Rams. You could see them trading up to go and get someone like a Carson Beck in the second round as a backup to Matt Stafford and as a potential long-term future replacement for him.
Georgia boys together.
Exactly. It's the same, and he's very much that sort of build of a Sean McVay quarterback. He's not a runner. He's someone to stand behind. So
yeah. I mean, we can have this conversation probably a million times.
Sorry, I got everyone off track with that question.
No, it's fine. It's always a good conversation because it's gonna change slightly every week. It's gonna change.
It's just Nick thinking about that board behind him, isn't it? That's what it is.
Oh yeah, it is.
I know.
And once you get your board fully together, like this will change your building with all the incredible information that you bring forward that none of us knew about beforehand.
I can move them really easy though. Look, I can take them off and
That's
I can
crazy.
play with them, move them easily.
Crazy. The technology that we have these days is phenomenal. The question, what I think needs to be brought up next, and I'm thinking, Nick, stop playing.
Sorry, OCD said that square wasn't straight. I could see it in my camera in the background. I thought, I don't like that. It's not straight. It's not straight.
Out of context, that's a very interesting comment to make. Anyway, the playoffs.
Right. Do you want me to rant, or because you said you weren't sure what you wanted to do?
You go first.
Right.
Go first.
Okay. We had a discussion last week and we talked about the order in which how we felt. And we said because Penn State and Texas both their only losses are to Ohio State deserved to be second ahead of those two. Fine, not a problem. Why does suddenly the rules change? Because Indiana lost, which I was very pleased with because that helped Notre Dame. But away from taking personal issues aside, Indiana lost, whose only defeat this year is now to Ohio State, who are also 10-1. Why are they not up with Penn State and Texas? What have they done wrong apart from lose to Ohio State, which everyone else has done? So I feel Indiana have been shafted good and proper. Again, I'm not going to complain that much in the fact that it helps Notre Dame, but Indiana should probably be 5 still. You've got Miami at 10-1, who, they're up there behind Notre Dame. SMU are 9th, they're 10-1, and Boise State are 11th, who are 10-1. So why does Georgia, who are 9-2, and Tennessee, who are 9-2, deserve to be higher than the 10-1 teams? Get your ass back down in that queue. The 10-1 teams, no matter who you've played, should be the top teams in the rankings now. You've gone far enough in the season that if you have won 10 games and only lost 1 game, you deserve to be higher than anybody else. And, yes, Ohio State should be the top 10-1 team. Other than that, if you've lost to Ohio State, you deserve to be higher than anybody else who's 10-1. But Indiana have been shafted. SMU and Boise State are just considered, even though you're 10-1, you're not as good as Georgia or Tennessee. Well, my record says I am, And then you've got, again, Alabama, who are doing their very best to blow up at 13, above what, 10, 9, and 2 teams? At
Hmm.
this point, this far into the season, your record should be where you are. I think we've gone far enough to say, and this goes back to what Gary said last year about Florida State and Florida State getting shafted last year. Their record said they should be where, you know, they should have been treated better than they were.
Yeah, because they
I
were
mean, that's just
they
the.
were they
I've
were
just used the playoff ranking. I've just used the playoff rankings there. The, the AP top 25 is slightly differently, but the playoff rankings are all that counts now. So that's why I was using that as an example. But
Yeah.
it just it seems to be that it's not right. And you said about the SEC teams getting a go. Well, look at that. The two 9-2 teams that are above the 10-1 teams, where are they? Oh, they're in the SEC. How convenient. It's
I
funny that
feel
all.
I feel
So,
for the Big 12 at the moment. I feel for the Big 12 because they're being punished because their conference is competitive. Okay, Colorado have lost 3 games, but you look BYU 9-2, Iowa State 9-2, Tulane not Tulane as well 9-2, but they're in the
Arizona
American.
State 9-2.
Arizona State 9-2. The only reason Arizona State are even in there is because they're the highest ranked out of the others. They're the bigger other guys, so we kind
And
of
they
have to
all
let them in.
deserve to be above Alabama and Ole Miss. I'm sorry, but you know,
Absolutely. So let me ask the question again, so I can get on my soapbox. Even though you've already answered it like 2 seconds ago.
yeah, go on.
Do you feel that SEC teams are being given an unfair favorability in these rankings?
Yes.
Sam, would you agree? SEC boy.
Oh, he's an SEC boy. He can.
No, I do think that there is an element of favoritism in there. I think the argument they'll say is that the SEC is made up of more teams that are in the top 25. So if you're losing to those teams, it just means that those losses
Right.
mean more because they're already in there. So
Right.
if you're winning everything else but losing to SEC teams, that actually it's not as bad as if you're losing to, say, Big 12 teams. That's the way I think it comes across. And I
So
think it does feel unfair because, like you say, there are teams in there that have better or equal records to Georgia and Tennessee who get shot. I mean, even when we lost our one game to Georgia, we dropped 7 places. It made zero sense why
yeah.
you would drop in 7 places. And it's the same. It feels like it's the same that unless you're one of in what the way I see it, sort of being relatively new to college, if you're Ohio State and Georgia, who are two of the big teams, the long-standing big teams, shall we say, the teams that have always been there. You could probably throw Alabama in there. If they lose games, it seems like it's less of a punishment to them in terms of their rankings than any other teams. Now they seem to get the 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 most lenient drops out of all teams, generally speaking. And then when they do win, get back on the winning train, they then seem to get a lenient push back up the rankings.
Other than I'll give you Louisville. I'll give them Louisville. Who have Miami beat? They played Florida. Okay, the good now at the end of the season. They played Florida first game of the season when everyone thought Billy Napier was on the hottest of the hottest seats. I'll beat them a little bit comfortably as well. Florida A&M. Who? Ball State, South Florida, Virginia Tech, Cal, Louisville, Florida State. Everyone beat Florida State. Duke, Georgia Tech was their loss, and
Hey,
Wake.
not quite a lot of Florida teams have lost to Georgia Tech. Let's remember that. Another
So,
team, we have seen Georgia Tech win against Florida before.
but also, well, let me just go back to everybody beats Florida State, unless you're an FCS team, maybe. Um, and Wake Forest, who they beat. Who have they beat? Who?
No one really. At least not
No
teams that
one.
you would consider. How many have they beaten anyone who's been in ranked teams?
Louisville was ranked at some point in the lower, I believe in the in between the 20 and 25s.
But were they ranked at the time of
Not
playing?
sure if they were ranked at the time. I think it'll tell me here. They were not.
So they haven't been a ranked team then.
They have not beaten a rank. They've only played one team that was ranked at. So, in fact, no, that's a lie because Florida State started the season ranked. That ended pretty quickly. It's like saying, well, you beat Michigan because Michigan were ranked. Yeah, we were ranked a long time ago, back when it was preseason opinion.
In ye olden days.
In ye olden days, they haven't. If you were ranked in the first 3 weeks and that's it, it doesn't count. They've not beaten anyone. Where are they in the ranking? They're
So-
sixth. They're sick. They've not beaten anybody. Indiana, on the other hand, the question was, well, who have they beat? Who have they beat? Who have they beat? They lose. I can't remember what the score was overall the weekend. Okay, they lose by 25. Well, 23 to Ohio State. Fair enough.
but it's Ohio
But their
State.
only loss is a couple of scores to second ranked, right? They're down in 10th. They're down in 10th. And they've at least played some. They played some, but I feel
And
like they played
that's
like.
essentially the argument I'm making. They
But
shouldn't be that low.
so here's the argument I'm making, right? And bear in mind, I'm willing to put my neck on the line here and have the mouse on my back for it. I'm willing to have the mouse on my back for it. Who decides the college football playoffs? Who runs it?
Committee.
The committee. Are they part of the NCAA?
No, they're independent.
No, they're completely independent, right? They don't have a governing body. They don't have anything. They have a board and people on a committee that they talk to. They have one sole exclusive broadcasting rights partner. Who's that?
The SEC.
No. The a
Oh, right.
broadcasting
Sorry.
partner.
Yeah.
Put it this way,
Um,
Sky can get all the games quite easily.
10 beats. Oh, it's ESPN.
ESPN. Who are ESPN? They also the exclusive broadcasting partners of
The SEC.
Mm.
The SEC.
the SEC. And what other one did it? What other one? The ACC. And SEC teams are getting somewhat favorable treatment or widely considered favorable treatment in the rankings. Alabama, who should be way out, are right on the cusp. So are Ole Miss. They can't get away with it too much. Okay, you've thrown Indiana, Miami, who I think for what you consider Miami's season and Indiana's season, given who they've beaten and who they've lost to, Indiana should be way above Miami. If you're going off the whole who they've beat, who they've lost to. But no, it's the AC. I'm willing to go have the mouse on my back for this one because I know who SPN are owned by. And I will come out and just say there may be some of this favorable treatment comes from the real people who are running college football, and they are the broadcasting partners. That is ESPN.
The Walt Disney
Because
Company.
it is a conspiracy, it is a suggestion. Please don't actually put the mouse on my back. But I'm throwing it out there as a possibility.
Are you saying that there is some backhanded transactions that are potentially favoring people in certain ways.
I'm saying ESPN put a lot of money into both of them, so ESPN's going to get their money out of them. And how is ESPN going to get their money out of the SEC and the ACC? It's by saying, well, we show all the ones with all the big playoff teams. We've got all the big important playoff games. We've got all the big important playoff teams. The Big Ten, okay, like I get it. Like Oregon, and if they really wanted to fudge it and be blatantly obvious about it, they wouldn't have Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State up there like that. But at the same
Problem is
time,
they had no real choice with Oregon. They've been the best team all year.
exactly. Like you kind of there is no real way around it. But I'm just saying, like I'm just throwing it out there that it's an option potentially that maybe ESPN looking after themselves here a little bit by being able to say that the regular season, the teams that you should be watching, those playoff teams. I'm not saying the SEC isn't absolutely full of quality. It is, and I would be happy to say potentially the hardest conference to play in. But at the same time, the ACC
There
has
is.
been pretty weak this year.
You have also got to think that Alabama shouldn't. Doesn't matter who you are. No team should be 7 and was it 7-3, 8-3,
8-3.
8-3, and on the precipice of being in the national playoffs. You know what I mean? Like you can't lose 3 games and be in with a shout. Like, not being funny.
I'm, I'm not actually. It's a suggestion. It's a suggestion that I'm making
It's
that
it's one of those
potentially
it's
fingers
one
are
of
in
those
pies.
areas which could quite easily become a bit of a
You're
conspiracy theory.
you're suggesting, just to clarify here, just to clarify, you're suggesting that a world multinational company such as the Disney Corporation have their thumb on the scale and are using their size and weight and money to actually affect sport in a way that makes it unfair and uneven
Well,
and
when you put it like that, it does sound
uncompetitive.
a little bit ridiculous, and I'll take it back.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them.
Well, the
As a
cease
hype,
and desist letters just flew through my window there. Oh, they're quick, aren't they?
that's the end of of this podcast.
That's that
Thank you very much.
that's the end. That's the end. Um, but no, like it's a suggestion. One that I'm very very tired today, and I got ridiculously allowed for my brain to run with that idea before we got on. It's a bad idea. It's a bad precedent to set. Um, with that in mind, moving on very quickly.
Genuine question though, as a hypothetical based upon this conversation, I think is quite apt. If Washington was to beat Oregon in Hate Week, how far do we think Oregon would drop? Because if we're going based upon what we just talked about, because theoretically, I would say that they could only drop 1 or 2 spots maximum.
It would depend. Technically, it would depend on Michigan, because if Michigan beat Ohio State, then Oregon wouldn't drop at all. But
But if then we beat Texas A&M, could we not go above both of them?
So, what
Because
I would
that would what a story that would be is that the new boys in the SEC be the #1 team, new kids on the block.
wouldn't it be interesting? They've beat Ohio State, who, if God forbid they win at the weekend, if they win at the weekend and Oregon lose, naturally that's your #1. Naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But Oregon have beat Ohio State. But their losses to an unranked team. And that really does kind of play with you kind of being pulled this way by the weight of your win against Ohio
yeah,
State,
the
but then you're
fact
being
that
pulled that way by Washington and
I bet if Oregon lost, they would move Ohio State above Oregon, and Oregon would finish two,
Yeah,
based on the fact that they beat Ohio State, and that would keep them above Texas. Because Texas's obviously losses against Georgia, who was
Georgia.
seventh. So I would say if that was to happen and Oregon were to lose, they would only drop the one place to two, and Ohio's assuming Ohio State beat whoever they're playing this week.
If
So
that's how, but if they were to drop further down, that would certainly fuel fire to the supposed hypothetically claimed idea that there's this multi conglomerate that's
But also
fixing
Indiana,
things.
if Indiana can lose to number two ranked team and fall that far, then surely Ohio, like even just from the point of another Big Ten team, I think it's interesting. But
I mean, if they can both lose and Texas win and we go to number one, I'd
I
appreciate
mean, yeah, that's
that.
actually a point because it wouldn't just be them two that would be 11-1. Texas win there 11-1. Penn State win there 11-1. Notre Dame win against USC they're 11-1.
Mhm.
You know, could Oregon drop 5 places all the way to six place?
This is what I mean. Like
That's
there is not within the realms of impossibility that could happen,
I
especially
don't
if they
think you
go
could
in.
drop them that far. I really
Oh, you
don't.
definitely
they've been
couldn't.
number
It
one for
wouldn't.
too long.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Mm.
But I can't. We've just had this conversation about Miami. You can't drop them below Miami, surely. And
No.
despite Notre Dame being excellent all year, they did have a blip against a bunch of idiots. So you probably can't drop them lower than Notre Dame either. Penn
So you're
State
probably
lost. So you're
you're probably
talking
looking below
Oregon,
four.
lowest Oregon would drop is fourth, but I don't think I'd drop them below Penn State either. Third's probably as low as I would drop Oregon if they
Mm.
lost.
But they won't, realistically.
No,
They've been brilliant all season. They deserve to be that number one. I
correct.
mean,
Absolutely.
even looking at that game, they're minus 18.5 on the spread. So
Um,
I just thought it's an interesting thought, especially
yeah.
based upon what we just said.
No, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. Um, with that in mind, we've mentioned the name way too many times now. Let's get into. I wanna get into it. I'm ready. I'm so done. I'm so ready. It's
Let's
hate
fly
week.
through
Let's
this.
let's talk some hate. Let's talk some hate week. Let's talk it. Um, just on a couple. On an update, by the way, tonight at the point of recording, this is the first time in 55 days where there's been no NFL or college football on in a night.
That's a
Oh,
shame.
what are you gonna do, Fletch?
I can't say on this podcast. Um, I can't say.
You
It's
going helmet hunting again?
I can't say. There
Uh,
were a couple of games that were played last night in the MAC. Toledo, Akron. Akron beat Toledo for the first time in years in overtime. Kent State got the cheeks clapped by Buffalo. That was not pretty. And they have ended the season
And
0-12 and they're 11 helmets.
are
Well,
they the only team this season in the FBS that will be 0-12?
yes. Because for quite a while it was UTEP, Kennesaw State, and Kent State who didn't have a win. Then UTEP won, then Kennesaw State won, and Kent State were the only ones that were left out. Because that's the only reason I remember that. So with some of the other, got Memphis at Tulane,
Big game.
big game.
Is that going? Do you think that game's going to decide that division conference? Sorry.
So look, I do have them. That I did have them up then. Memphis at no, because Army and Tulane are both 7-0 in the conference. Navy and Memphis are both 5-2 in the conference. Even if Memphis win and Tulane lose, They go up to 6-2 in the conference. Tulane are 7-1.
Okay.
Um, and Army would be either 8-0 or 7-1 in their conference as well. So that those two will top the conference. Those two will go for the conference championship. So unfortunately, not anyone who voted Memphis, which was anyone other than Nick this year, has lost that one.
But wouldn't that unless if Army win this week, then no one's got that one correct, essentially.
Well, I think we go off the conference championships. So the
Okay.
conference championship would be between Tulane and Army.
So
If
we're going to go
Tulane,
based upon the actual final match
oh yeah,
as to who wins.
we'll
Okay.
go. We'll officially base it off who lifts the conference trophy at the end of the season. I think it's only.
That's fine.
We have on well. These are on Friday because there's a lot of football on Friday, and there's some NFL in there as well. We've got Oklahoma State at Colorado. I've been disappointed this season with Oklahoma State, expecting more from Ollie Gordon.
He's been shocking.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, which I don't know. By the way, have any of you seen the Sickos committee thread this week? The Hate Week thread,
No.
where they've taken the rivalry games and they flipped the logos and put, say,
Oh, they didn't know whether to do
Minnesota's
the colours.
sometimes got and its style and things like that. And the
Okay.
best thing they did with Minnesota and Wisconsin is they just flipped them.
Oh, the letters.
So the Wisconsin W was just flipped the other way around to be an M, and the Minnesota M flipped round to be a W, and that was quite clever. And I've just pressed the wrong button. There we go. Ball State, Ohio. I mean, we're all watching that one, obviously. We're all watching Ball State, Ohio. Miami Bowling Green, Navy, East Carolina. I didn't know that was a rivalry. Mississippi State, Ole Miss.
That's one
Liberty,
of the
Sam
game.
Houston.
That's one of the games on Sky, I think. Because Sky have got 4 games on Friday.
Oh,
Three
They've
college
obviously
games
got
and one
they've got
NFL.
3 college games. I'll watch the 3 college games. I'm not watching I'm not watching
Chief
Patrick Mahomes.
Raiders.
Can't stand it. Can't stand them. So
so
I'll
have
go.
they,
I'll be
have they
watching
got
Georgia Tech and Georgia. So
so do
Um,
they? Will they have the? Which game do they have at the 5 o'clock? Is it the Navy game or is it the
no, they've got
Oklahoma
I think
Colorado?
it's Oklahoma, Colorado. Yeah,
yes, they've got
Yeah,
Oklahoma, Colorado at 5 o'clock. They've
they're
got
the
Ole
ABC game.
Miss. They've got Ole
Mississippi State.
Miss
Yeah,
Mississippi
at
game.
8:30, and then
Yeah,
they've got Georgia
it's
Tech
yeah,
versus Georgia at 12:30.
basically it's all the games on ABC.
yeah.
Essentially,
Um, we also got Utah State, Colorado State, Texas State, South Alabama, Stanford, San Jose State, and then on like Saturday morning, Georgia Tech versus Georgia. That should be not very fun to watch
Liberty against Sam Houston
in
as well.
Georgia. Sorry, in Georgia, obviously, in Athens. So Georgia are at home.
Some good games
I'm
in
gonna
there. I
have
think.
to. I'm gonna have to support Georgia Tech in that game, aren't I?
Well, I think we're all
Yeah,
gonna have to realistically. I think it's the only logical thing that we have to do.
You know,
yeah.
I
We've
mean,
been,
being as the Bulldogs are the only Georgia team I haven't watched live this year, I kind of need to back the guys I have seen. So
when did you see
Georgia Tech
Kennesaw
it
State?
is.
Georgia.
No, I said the big team, Georgia teams, big Georgia
No,
teams.
I know the just not the biggest. Okay, I get it. Right,
You
fair
know,
enough. Not the massive ones.
the Georgia Tech and Georgia
Just
State.
just
Yeah,
the big ones, not the massive ones. I get it. It's fine.
yeah, you
Um,
know.
no, but listen, like I have to say, I've watched Georgia Tech this year, so I feel like I have to support them there too. Um,
What's the Sky Saturday games? I'm going to guess it's Tennessee Vanderbilt. That's
Um, Hang on, I will tell you. Talk amongst yourselves.
Hiya Sam,
Hello,
how are you?
I'm okay. Starting to get tired.
I'm going to bail in a minute,
South
boys. Anyway.
Carolina, Clemson. Got them for you. Nick, it's fine.
Oh, well, there you go.
Is that the 5 o'clock game?
South Carolina at Clemson, Miami at Syracuse, and Texas at Texas A&M.
Ooh. The only problem is I can't stay up that late anymore. I don't have the energy to stay up that late anymore. So I may have to catch that in the morning.
How old are you?
Too old.
Come on, man.
31.
You've got a little one that you can quite easily just use the excuse that it woke up.
He sleeps through the night every single night. I really can't use him as an
Not on
excuse.
Saturday, you didn't.
What if you were to
Not
Yeah.
not
accidentally
on
make
Saturday
some
coming up, you
noise
didn't.
outside the baby's room, the baby wakes up, and then you have to spend all night with the baby? See?
Yeah,
But
unfortunately, I
I
won't be able to get
realised that just saying not on Saturday, you didn't. It just was a bit of a weird way to come out with
Yeah,
that one.
like as if
How do you know?
just thinking. Yeah.
Um, no, there's some really good ones this weekend. Obviously you've got Texas A&M that has huge implications for the SEC championship.
Mhm,
Notre Dame have USC,
mhm.
which is fun. Not going to beat up on any more military. No,
oh no, we've done. I'd hate for us to do everybody.
no. I'll kick a couple of lifeguards while you're down there.
Well, yeah, head down to Baywatch Beach and see who we can beat up.
Yeah. Just anyone trying to help the country and the citizens. Just go hurt them. Not having that anymore. Uh,
Interesting
Hang on
thing.
a minute. Hang on. When the Air Force lost to whoever else they lost to, I didn't hear us on this podcast slag them off for being unpatriotic. No,
no,
it's
because
just
it
they are
doesn't wind
fighting
you up.
Irish.
No, because it doesn't get this reaction.
I feel victimized.
Yeah, stupid Arizona, whoever it was. I don't know. If I turn around and wind up Arizona State, you're all, who cares?
Interestingly enough, though, that Texas A&M, if Texas A&M win that game, they'll go to 6-2 in the conference. We'll be on 6-2 in the conference. Georgia, who play Georgia Texas, they'll be 6-2 in the conference. And if Tennessee win, they're playing Vanderbilt, they'll be 6-2 in the division. So you could have 4 teams that'll be on 6-2 in the conference. And you'll have Texas on 10-2, Georgia on 10-2, Tennessee on 10-2, and Texas A&M on 9-3.
And apart from
So,
Georgia, that's going to be fun to see because that's a lot of te
mm,
in a row.
I
so
I
That's
need
that's
to
the bit I
bail.
think of. Apparently,
I need to bail, gents. I'm sorry.
no problem. Well, we're about to wrap up anyway.
All right.
So obviously you got Auburn, Alabama, and then NC State, North Carolina. Yeah, just a lot of rivalry games, big. And the thing
huge
is,
Florida against Florida State, though. You got to
Florida,
remember that.
Florida, and
Huge
but
game.
the thing about this is, and we talk about this in terms of the NFL, where divisional games and how they just don't play out like they're supposed to. This is the same with college football. You think of them even more like derbies this weekend.
Mm.
And when Michigan play Ohio State, it plays out more like a derby. You would traditionally think a derby, an old firm derby, or back when derbies used to be good and they weren't full of like players who didn't care about the rivalry and all that sort of stuff.
Bragging
It's going
rights.
to be, I think crazy is not the word for it. But it's going to be a hectic weekend of football, and expect fisticuffs, expect just a lot of emotion and drama to happen.
For anyone new to college, if you watched recently the Pittsburgh against the Ravens last week or the week before, and the number of fights, arguments, scuffles that happened in that match, that's basically what this weekend there will be a lot of in a lot of games.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's from players, staff, and people in the
Stands.
stands. It's proper sport the way it should be done, European style and South American style. This is what sport's about, and this is why we
Now
love it.
that's a game I would love to go and see. Boca Juniors versus River Plate.
I genuinely
Oh,
wouldn't. It scares the living crap out of
I
me.
would love just once to say you've done it. Oh, I would love. I wouldn't wear any colours. I'd go literally in all black.
Yeah.
I'd go like neutral as anything, and I'd just shut my mouth, not say a word, not celebrate. I'd just sit there with my hands underneath my backside. I would not say a single word. But I think just to experience, I mean, that's got to be what the best
That's the
derby.
biggest. It's the biggest rivalry. It's the when we say biggest rivalry in terms of the danger and the hatred and the hostility in a
Intensity.
game. That
Again, for
is
Intensity.
people that
the
don't know,
biggest.
we're talking
Yeah.
Argentinian Premier League soccer.
It's
That's
like it's like
immense.
old school, the old firm. That's the level it's at.
Yeah.
Um,
But,
but
and
I'm
on that
still yet
note,
to.
I'll see you boys later.
Unlike the time where Derby, I've never seen anyone punch a horse yet.
No,
That was
that's
a
true.
never
But he
seen
didn't
anyone
really
punch a police
he
horse
didn't
yet.
really punch a horse. He took a swing and failed miserably. But
Well, that just ruins the having a moment of fun there. As killed a dream. No, for joke. With that in mind, we're gonna let you go. We're gonna let Nick go to sleep. We're gonna let Sam go to sleep. We're gonna let me pretend to go to sleep for a little bit, and enjoy your week of college football. And we'll see you next week if you are new to the game. If you survive, and links in the description. Check out all the different things going on across the network, and we will see you next week.
See you later.